The massive crystal table in the Galactic Council chambers reflected the lights from 12 different homeworlds. Each species had their own section of the Great Hall, designed to accommodate their unique needs. The Zephyrians stood tall on elevated platforms, their blue scales gleaming under the bright lights. The Krillians hunched over their heavy stone seats, their armor making scraping sounds against the floor. In the smallest section sat Ambassador Jin Hyok, representing humanity. Jin Hyok had been Earth's representative for 3 years now. He was a quiet man with careful eyes who rarely spoke during meetings. Other ambassadors often forgot he was there. Today felt different, though. The agenda had been kept secret, and several military advisors filled the observer seats. High Counselor Vex Thara rose from her towering chair. She was the leader of the Zephyrians and had controlled the council for over 2 decades. Her voice carried across the chamber like thunder. "Fellow council members," she began. "Today we address a matter of galactic security and fairness. For too long, some species have enjoyed the protection of our combined fleets without contributing their fair share." Minister Grol Nath, the Krillian military advisor, nodded his massive head. His species had provided soldiers for the council armies for centuries. Several other representatives shifted in their seats, sensing where this was heading. The tribute system has kept peace in our galaxy for over 300 years. "Vex," Thara continued, "every species must contribute according to their abilities. Today, we expand this sacred duty to include our newest member." Jin Hyuk felt his stomach tighten, but his face remained calm. He had suspected this day would come ever since humanity joined the Council 20 years ago. His grandfather had warned him about the Council's true nature. "Humanity," Vex Thara announced, "will provide the following tribute to ensure galactic peace and stability." A holographic display appeared above the crystal table, showing the terms in multiple languages. Jin Hyuk read them without expression, though inside his heart raced. The demands were staggering. 50 million young humans between ages 18 and 25 would join the Council military forces every year. Earth would give complete access to all its natural resources, including the rare metals found only on human worlds. Humanity would surrender all military technology and weapons to Council control. Most shocking of all, 30% of Earth's population would relocate to Council labor worlds to work in mining and manufacturing. Around the chamber, representatives from other species stared at the display in shock. Even those who supported the tribute system had never seen demands this extreme. The Etherean diplomat, Ancient Shendal, made a soft sound of distress. "These terms seem rather harsh," spoke Ambassador Telvan from the Makari delegation. His own species had faced tribute demands 50 years ago, though nothing like this scale. "Harsh?" Grolnath's voice boomed through his translator. "Humanity has lived in luxury, while others bled for galactic peace. They owe us everything they have." Jin Hyok noticed that several species representatives looked uncomfortable. The Zenori ambassador actually looked sick. Her people had lost half their population to tribute demands over the past century. "The terms are non-negotiable," Vex Thara declared. "Humanity has 7 days to accept these conditions. Failure to comply will result in immediate economic sanctions, followed by military enforcement if necessary." The chamber erupted in whispered conversations. Some species delegates argued among themselves. Others sat in stunned silence. Through it all, Jin Hyuk remained perfectly still, his hands folded on the small human section of the great table. "Ambassador Jin Hyuk," Vex Thara called out, "do you understand the terms presented to your species?" Jin Hyuk stood slowly. His voice was calm and clear when he spoke. "I understand the demands perfectly, High Counselor. I request permission to return to Earth immediately to consult with my government." "Permission granted," Vex Thara replied with what might have been satisfaction. "You have 7 standard days from this moment. The Council expects humanity's full compliance." Several ambassadors tried to approach Jin Hyuk as the session ended, but he politely excused himself. The Etherean diplomat Shendal managed to catch his arm near the exit. I am sorry, the ancient being whispered. My people faced similar demands long ago. We survived, but barely. Perhaps there is another way. Jin Hyuk nodded respectfully. Thank you for your concern, honored Shendal. I will carry your words back to Earth. As he walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime toward the human embassy, Jin Hyuk activated a small communication device. The quantum signal would reach Earth instantly, no matter how far away. Priority message to command. He spoke quietly into the device. The Council has made their move. They want everything. Grandfather was right about their true nature. Initiating Protocol 7. Behind him, Minister Grolnath was already talking to other military advisors about the coming campaign. Humans are weak, he was saying. They have no real military. This will be over. Quickly. High Counselor Vexthara returned to her private chambers, confident that she had just solved the Council's resource problems for the next century. Humanity would provide the workers and soldiers needed for expansion into new sectors of the galaxy. Their natural resources would fund the next phase of Council growth. Neither of them noticed the small device Jin Hyuk had left behind, carefully placed under the chamber's main conference table. It was recording everything. That night, as Jin Hyuk prepared to depart for Earth, he received a message from his grandfather, Admiral Park Jun-ho. The old man's face appeared on the secure communication screen in his quarters. Jin, the Admiral said, I know what they asked for. I have been preparing for this day since we first joined their council. Tell them we are ready. Jin Hyuk nodded. What should I tell President Chen about our response? His grandfather's weathered face broke into a slight smile. Tell her that sometimes the best answer is also the shortest one. She will understand. As Jin Hyuk's ship left Nexus Prime the next morning, carrying him back toward Earth, he thought about his grandfather's words. In 7 days, he would return to this chamber with humanity's answer to the Council's demands. He already knew what that answer would be. The emergency session began at dawn in the Geneva complex. Leaders from every nation on Earth gathered in the main conference hall, their faces serious as Jin Hyuk's report played on the massive screens around the room. President Sarah Chen sat at the head of the table, her fingers pressed together as she listened to the Council's impossible demands. 50 million people, she said quietly when the report ended. It gets worse, Jin Hyuk replied from his position at the podium. The tribute species I met during my time on Nexus Prime told me what really happens. The young people sent to military service rarely return home. Most die in the Council's wars of expansion. The survivors are kept as permanent soldiers, never allowed to see their families again. General Marcus Wright, head of Earth's defense forces, stood up from his seat. What about the labor camps they mentioned? Jin Hyuk's face grew darker. I spoke with Zen Ori refugees. Their elders work 18-hour days in mining operations on dead worlds. The Makari told me their people live in underground caves, digging rare metals until they collapse. Medical care is minimal. The average life expectancy in Council labor camps is less than 10 years. When the Makari told me their people were 17 life, also people 7. And the Wagan 17 life were 17 life to that. A shocked silence filled the room. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief science advisor, was the first to speak. This is slavery on a scale we can barely imagine. How many species are trapped in this system? 17 active tribute species, Jin Hyuk answered. 3 other civilizations went extinct over the past 2 centuries. The Council strip-mined their homeworlds after working their populations to death. At the back of the room, an elderly man stood up slowly. Admiral Park Jun-ho was 83 years old and had served humanity for over 6 decades. His voice was still strong despite his age. I need to tell you all something I should have shared 20 years ago, he began. When humanity first made contact with the Galactic Council, I was part of the initial diplomatic team. What we found was not a peaceful alliance of equals. The room grew quiet as the old admiral continued. The Council identified humanity as what they call a compliance species. They study new civilizations for decades before making contact, looking for signs of military weakness, social structures that can be exploited, and valuable resources. We passed all their tests for the perfect tribute species. President Chen leaned forward. What do you mean? They saw our wars, our divided nations, our seemingly simple technology. They believed we would be easy to control once they revealed their military superiority. What they did not know was that we were watching them too. Dr. Vasquez stood up. Admiral, are you saying we have been preparing for this? Admiral Park nodded. For 20 years, Project Prometheus has been humanity's most classified program. While we presented ourselves as peaceful traders interested only in cultural exchange, our best scientists were studying Council technology. Our engineers were designing weapons systems. Our strategists were planning for exactly this moment. General Wright activated a holographic display that showed the current position of human fleets. Instead of the small defensive force the Council expected to find, the display revealed over 1,500 advanced warships positioned throughout human space and beyond. How is this possible? Asked the representative from the African Federation. Simple, Admiral Park replied. We told the Council what they wanted to hear. We showed them converted cargo ships and called them our military fleet. We demonstrated basic weapons technology and claimed it was our best. Meanwhile, we were building shipyards in hidden locations, developing new science that they could never imagine. Jin Hyuk stepped forward. Grandfather, the Council believes humanity has only 200 ships, mostly converted civilian vessels. They think we are helpless. Good, Admiral Park said with a thin smile. Let them think that for 6 more days. President Chen called for a brief recess. When the session resumed, she addressed the assembly directly. We face a choice that will determine the future of our species, and potentially the entire galaxy. We can submit to the Council's demands and watch our children disappear into their war machine, or we can fight. The representative from the Asian coalition raised her hand. What are our chances in a direct military conflict? General Wright answered immediately. Based on our intelligence and technological advantages, we estimate a 95% chance of victory in any engagement with current Council forces. Shocked murmurs filled the room. The representative from the European Union asked, How can you be so confident? Dr. Vasquez activated another display showing detailed analysis of Council military technology. Their weapons and defenses are powerful, but outdated. They rely on quantum shield technology that our new plasma lance systems can penetrate easily. Their ships are heavily armored, but slow. Our vessels are faster, more maneuverable, and carry 3 times the firepower. More importantly, Admiral Park added, they have grown overconfident after centuries of easy victories. Their military tactics have not changed in over 200 years. They believe superior numbers always win battles. They do not understand that superior technology and strategy can overcome any numerical advantage. President Chen stood up. The question before us is not whether we can win a war with the Council. The question is whether we should start one. Fighting back will mean the deaths of millions on both sides. Are we prepared for that responsibility? The room fell silent for several minutes. Finally, the representative from the Americas Coalition spoke. What about the tribute species currently suffering under Council rule? Do we have a responsibility to help them? Jin Hyuk answered before anyone else could speak. I met children on Nexus Prime who had never seen their parents. I spoke with elderly Makari who begged me to carry messages to families they would never see again. The Zen Ori have lost so much of their population that their species may not survive another generation of tribute demands. Then we have our answer, President Chen declared. We will not submit to the Council's demands. We will not allow our people to suffer the fate of other tribute species. But we will do more than just resist. We will end the tribute system forever. The vote was unanimous. Every representative agreed that humanity would reject the Council's demands and fight to free the oppressed species throughout the galaxy. As the assembly prepared to adjourn, Admiral Park addressed the room one final time. Jin Hyuk will return to Nexus Prime with our response. When he delivers it, the galaxy will change forever. I suggest we use the next 6 days to ensure we are ready for what comes next. President Chen nodded. All military forces are to move to alert status immediately. Begin civilian evacuation procedures on all border worlds, and prepare the special message for all tribute species throughout the galaxy. When this is over, they need to know that help is coming. Jin Hyuk looked at his grandfather. What should I tell the Council when they ask for our response? The old admiral's eyes gleamed with something that might have been anticipation. Tell them exactly what I told you earlier. Sometimes the shortest answer is also the best one. The council chambers buzzed with excitement as representatives filled every available seat. High Counselor Vex Thara had invited observers from across the galaxy to witness what she called a lesson in council authority. News reporters from dozens of species prepared their equipment to broadcast humanity's expected surrender to their home worlds. Minister Grolnath stood near the military observer section, his massive form casting shadows over smaller species representatives. Today, the galaxy learns what happens to those who dare delay council decisions, he announced to anyone within hearing range. Ambassador Jin Hyuk entered the chamber exactly 7 days after receiving the tribute demands. He carried a simple data crystal in his hand and walked with the same calm confidence he had shown a week earlier. Several ambassadors watched him carefully, trying to read any sign of defeat or desperation in his manner. They found none. Ambassador Jin Hyuk. Vex Thara's voice rang through the chamber as she gestured toward the speaker's podium. You returned to us precisely on time. I trust you bring humanity's acceptance of our reasonable tribute requirements. Jin Hyuk approached the podium slowly. Around the chamber, representatives leaned forward in their seats. The Zen-Ori ambassador looked away, unable to watch another species accept the same fate that had destroyed so many of her people. The ancient Etherian diplomat Shendal watched with sad eyes that had seen this scene too many times before. High Counselor, Jin Hyuk began, his voice clear and steady. I carry the official response of Earth's unified government to the Council's tribute demands. He placed the data crystal into the chamber's central processor. The holographic display activated above the great table, showing Earth's official seal. Then, in letters large enough for every being in the chamber to read clearly, appeared humanity's complete response to the tribute demand. No. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives jumped to their feet, shouting questions and exclamations in a dozen different languages. Several ambassadors stared at the display in disbelief, certain they had misunderstood something. The word remained unchanged, glowing softly above the crystal table. High Counselor Vex Thara's blue scales flushed dark with rage. Her voice when she spoke was loud enough to shake the chamber walls. What is the meaning of this insult? Where is your species' acceptance of the tribute requirements? Jin Hyuk gestured calmly toward the display. That is our complete response, High Counselor. Humanity formally rejects all tribute demands made by this council. Minister Grolnath pounded his armored fists against his stone seat, creating thunderous sounds that made smaller species representatives jump in fear. Impossible. No species has ever refused tribute demands. You will reconsider immediately. There is nothing to reconsider. Jin Hyuk replied, with the same steady voice he had maintained throughout both sessions. Earth's government has consulted our legal experts and historical records. We find that the tribute system violates the original Galactic Council Charter and represents illegal enslavement of member species. The chamber fell into shocked silence. For over 300 years, no species had challenged the legal foundation of the tribute system. Several older ambassadors looked genuinely surprised by Jin Hyuk's claim. Vexthara's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You dare question the authority of this council? You forget your place, human. Jin Hyuk activated his personal datapad and began reading from prepared documents. According to the original charter signed 400 years ago, all council members are guaranteed sovereignty over their internal affairs. No member species can be forced to provide military personnel or resources beyond voluntary contributions for mutual defense. He continued reading as representatives throughout the chamber whispered urgently among themselves. The tribute system was added through amendments that required unanimous consent of all member species. Historical records show that 17 current tribute species never agreed to these amendments. The system is therefore illegal under the Council's own laws. Ambassador Telvan of the Makari leaned forward in his seat. Are you saying my people never legally agreed to tribute demands? That is correct, Jin Hyuk replied. Your species was coerced into compliance through military threats. The same applies to all current tribute species. Humanity formally challenges the legality of the entire tribute system and demands its immediate abolition. The chamber exploded in angry shouts from council leadership and surprised murmurs from other representatives. Several species ambassadors were frantically accessing their own historical records on personal devices. Vexthara rose to her full imposing height. Your legal theories are meaningless. This council has maintained galactic peace for centuries through strength and order. Humanity will comply with tribute demands or face the consequences. What consequences? Jin Hyuk asked calmly. Minister Grolnath's laugh boomed through the chamber. Complete economic blockade of all human worlds within days. Military destruction of your pathetic fleet within weeks. Occupation of Earth within months. Your species will learn the price of defying the Council's will. Other military representatives echoed similar threats. The Hegemony Admiral mentioned their planet-killing weapons. The Zephyrian Fleet Commander described orbital bombardment capabilities. Through it all, Jin Hyuk listened without visible emotion. I see, he said when the threats finished. So, the Council plans to use military force to compel compliance with illegal tribute demands? We plan to restore order, Vexthara declared. Your species chose this path through your arrogance and foolishness. Jin Hyuk nodded slowly. Then I must deliver the second part of Earth's response. He activated his datapad again and began reading from another document. Earth's government offers the Galactic Council one opportunity to peacefully dissolve the tribute system and provide fair compensation to all affected species for centuries of illegal exploitation. This offer will remain open for exactly 72 hours. The chamber erupted in laughter from council leadership and shocked gasps from other representatives. Vexthara's scales had turned almost black with rage. You make demands of us? She shrieked. You threaten the council? What gives your insignificant species the right to make ultimatums? Jin Hyuk looked directly at the High Counselor, his expression never changing. Superior firepower. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the background hum of air circulation systems seemed loud in the sudden quiet. Minister Grolnath was the first to speak, his voice filled with disbelief. Superior firepower? Your species has 200 converted cargo ships. No, Jin Hyuk replied simply. We do not. He began walking toward the chamber exit as representatives shouted questions at him. At the doorway, he turned back to face the assembly. The 72-hour deadline begins now, he announced. Earth suggests the Council use this time wisely. Consider the fate of every tribute species. Consider the suffering you have caused for 3 centuries. Consider whether maintaining an illegal system is worth the war you are about to start. As the chamber doors closed behind him, Vexthara screamed orders for immediate military mobilization. Throughout the chamber, representatives from tribute species stared at each other with something that might have been hope. For the first time in over 300 years, someone had said no to the Galactic Council. And somehow, impossibly, they seemed prepared to make that refusal stick. The war room deep inside Nexus Prime had never seen such activity. Military commanders from 12 species crowded around holographic displays, showing fleet positions throughout the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Kextar of the Hegemony had taken overall command, his 4 arms moving rapidly as he coordinated the largest military mobilization in Council history. "How many ships do we have available for immediate deployment?" he asked his aide, a nervous young Zephyrian officer. 4,732 warships. Admiral, another 300 are completing maintenance cycles and will be ready within 48 hours. Minister Grolnath examined the tactical displays with satisfaction. More than enough to crush a few hundred human cargo ships. Perhaps we are bringing too much force to this fight. No, Admiral Kextar replied firmly. The humans defied the Council publicly. Every species in the galaxy watched them reject tribute demands. We must respond with overwhelming power to ensure no one else gets similar ideas. Around the room, other commanders nodded agreement. The Vorthan carrier group would provide fighter support. Zephyrian stealth cruisers would conduct reconnaissance and cut off escape routes. The massive Krillian dreadnoughts would serve as the main attack force, their quantum cannons capable of destroying entire fleets. "What do our intelligence reports say about human military capabilities?" asked Commander Veltar from the Hegemony Technical Division. The intelligence briefing appeared on the main display. "According to our data, humanity possesses approximately 200 ships, mostly converted civilian vessels with basic defensive weapons. Their largest ship is roughly equivalent to our light cruisers. Their technology level appears to be at least 50 years behind Council standards." Admiral Kextar studied the numbers with growing confidence. A single battle group could handle this threat. Still, we will deploy the full force to make an example. How long to reach human space? Number: 6 days for the advanced scouts, 8 days for the main fleet, his aide reported. Excellent. Begin immediate deployment. I want every ship in position around Earth within 10 days. The humans will surrender when they see our strength, but if they choose to fight, we will end this quickly. The orders went out across the galaxy. The largest military force ever assembled began moving toward human space. Thousands of warships emerged from orbital shipyards and defense stations, their crews confident in easy victory. On the 3rd day of the advance, everything changed. "Admiral," the panicked voice of Scout Commander Zilneth crackled through the communications system. "We are detecting massive energy signatures throughout human space." "Oh." Admiral Kextar frowned at the display. "Define massive, Commander." "Sir, our sensors are reading over 1,500 distinct ship signatures. Large vessels, not the cargo ships we expected. They appear to be arranged in defensive formations around every major human world." The war room fell silent. Admiral Kextar checked the readings 3 times before accepting what he was seeing. 1,500 ships? That is impossible. Our intelligence was very clear about human capabilities. Minister Grolnath pounded his fist against the table. Human deception. They must have hidden their true fleet size from Council observers. No matter. We still outnumber them 3-1. "Begin the attack," Admiral Kextar ordered. "All units are to engage human forces on site. Show no mercy." The Battle of Luna began when the Council's advance force attempted to establish a blockade around Earth's moon. Admiral Kextar expected to find a few dozen human ships desperately trying to defend their homeworld. Instead, his sensors detected 300 advanced warships emerging from concealed positions behind asteroids and lunar facilities. "All ships, engage the enemy," Admiral Kextar commanded. "For the glory of the Council." The Krillian dreadnought, Mighty Hammer, opened fire first, its massive quantum cannons targeting the closest human ship. The energy beams that could crack planets struck the human vessel's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed without any visible effect. Then the human ship returned fire. The plasma lance that erupted from the human vessel's weapons array cut through the Mighty Hammer's shields like they did not exist. The beam sliced completely through the dreadnought's armored hull, causing catastrophic explosions that tore the massive ship apart. "Impossible," Minister Grolnath shouted as he watched his people's most powerful warship die in seconds. Their weapons cannot be that advanced. Around the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human technology proved devastatingly superior to Council forces. Zephyrian stealth cruisers found their cloaking systems useless against human sensors. Vorthan fighters were outmaneuvered and destroyed by smaller human craft that moved with impossible speed and precision. "Fall back," Admiral Kex Tar ordered as his flagship shook under human fire. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance." The surviving Council forces pulled back to the edge of human space, their losses staggering. In less than 6 hours, they had lost over 40% of the advance fleet. The humans had not lost a single ship. How? Admiral Kextar stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. How did they achieve such technological superiority? The answer came from intercepted human communications. Council intelligence officers translated the messages with growing horror. "Project Prometheus Phase 1 complete," a human commander reported. "All enemy ships neutralized or retreated. Beginning. Phase 2. Deployment. Advance toward Council space as planned." Admiral Kextar's blood ran cold. Phase 2? There is a Phase 2? On the displays, human fleets that had been defending their worlds began moving outward. They were not content to simply repel the Council attack. They were going on the offensive. "Emergency transmission to Nexus Prime," Admiral Kex Tar ordered. "Request immediate deployment of all reserve forces, and authorize the use of planet-killer weapons." The message that reached High Counselor Vex Thera was desperate and terrifying. The humans had not only defeated the Council's attack, but were advancing toward Council territory with technology that made their own forces look like ancient relics. "Deploy everything we have," Vex Thara commanded. "Activate the planet-killer missiles. If we cannot defeat the humans conventionally, we will destroy their worlds." 3-1. The massive weapons launched from hidden Council bases, their destructive power capable of cracking planetary crusts and boiling away atmospheres. 12 missiles streaked toward Earth, carrying enough force to render the human homeworld uninhabitable. As the weapons approached Earth, something impossible happened. Energy shields appeared around the planet, shields so powerful they made the defensive barriers around Council worlds look like soap bubbles. The planet-killer missiles struck the barriers and simply vanished, their total destructive output absorbed without even a flicker. Then Admiral Park Junho's voice broadcast on all galactic frequencies from the human flagship Prometheus. "People of the galaxy," the elderly human began. "The Galactic Council has just attempted to destroy Earth with weapons of mass destruction. They have chosen war over peace, destruction over justice. As of this moment, the tribute system is abolished. All tribute species are declared free. Any Council ship that attacks human forces or civilian targets will face immediate destruction." The message continued. But Admiral Kex Tar was no longer listening. On his displays, human fleets were crossing into Council space. Ships more advanced than anything in the galaxy were heading straight for Nexus Prime. "Sir," his aide whispered, "what are your orders?" Admiral Kextar stared at the approaching human forces and realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The Council's reign of terror was coming to an end, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. "Send a message to all Council ships," he said quietly. "Prepare for surrender negotiations." The sight of human warships surrounding Nexus Prime was something no being in the galaxy had ever imagined possible. The massive station that had dominated galactic politics for over 1,000 years now found itself helpless before an enemy it had dismissed as weak and primitive just days earlier. Admiral Park Junho stood on the bridge of the HSS Prometheus, watching as his fleet took defensive positions around the Council's capital. At 83 years old, he had spent most of his life preparing for this moment. Now, it was finally here. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "High Counselor Vex Thara is requesting immediate negotiations. Tell her I will consider her request after she releases all tribute species from their obligations. Admiral Park replied calmly. No negotiations, while people remain enslaved. Inside the council chambers, Vexthara paced frantically as her advisors tried to find some way to salvage their authority. Minister Grolnath sat in stunned silence, still unable to believe that his mighty fleet had been destroyed by creatures he had considered barely civilized. We could try to rally the remaining loyal species, suggested one advisor. Perhaps offer them better tribute terms in exchange for their support. With what ships? Vexthara snapped. The humans destroyed 4/5 of our fleet. The few survivors are too afraid to fight back. Across the galaxy, the liberation had already begun. Human task forces arrived at tribute worlds and labor camps with overwhelming force but surprising gentleness. On the mining world of Kethvar, human marines broke open the containment facilities where Zenori prisoners had been held for decades. Commander Lee Min-jun led the rescue operation personally. When the doors opened, he found elderly Zenori, who had not seen sunlight in 20 years. Many collapsed with relief when they realized their captivity was over. We are taking you home, he told them in their own language, which human linguists had learned during their years of secret preparation. Your families are waiting. 8. Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Makari elders who had given up hope of freedom wept as human medical teams treated their injuries and malnutrition. Young tribute soldiers discovered they could go home to families they thought they would never see again. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Jin Hyuk met with representatives from the liberated species. The gathering took place in a neutral conference room, away from the intimidating council chambers where so many had suffered humiliation and loss. The tribute system is finished, Jin Hyuk announced to the group. No species will ever again be forced to provide people or resources against their will. But we need your help to build something better. The Zenori ambassador, tears still fresh from news of her people's liberation, spoke first. What do you want from us? After centuries of giving everything to the council, we have little left. We want nothing from you, Jin Hyuk replied. We want to give something to you. The chance to rebuild your civilization as free beings. Ancient Shendal, the Etherean diplomat, leaned forward in her chair. I have lived for over 600 years. I have watched 17 species fall under tribute demands. What makes you think this freedom will last? Because we will protect it, Admiral Park said as he entered the room. Humanity has no interest in ruling other species. We have seen what happens when one group dominates all others. We will never allow that to happen again. The discussions continued for hours as representatives worked to establish principles for a new galactic government. Unlike the old council system where powerful species dominated weaker ones, the new charter would guarantee equality for all members. Several major species that had supported the council attempted to remain neutral, hoping to avoid consequences for their participation in the tribute system. Admiral Park made it clear that neutrality was not an option. You were either part of the problem or part of the solution, he told the hegemony ambassador during a private meeting. Your ships participated in enforcing tribute demands. Your people profited from slave labor. That ends now. The trials of council leadership began 3 months later. High Counselor Vexthara faced a tribunal composed of representatives from every species she had oppressed. The evidence against her filled thousands of data files documenting centuries of illegal enslavement and genocide. President Chen, who had traveled from Earth to oversee the proceedings, announced the philosophy behind the trials. We seek justice, not vengeance. These individuals will face consequences for their actions, but we will not repeat their mistakes by responding with cruelty. Vexthara's sentence surprised many observers. Instead of execution or imprisonment, she was exiled to a remote agricultural world where she would spend the remainder of her life providing humanitarian service to tribute survivors. It was both punishment and an opportunity for redemption. Minister Grol Nath received a similar sentence. Working alongside former slaves to rebuild worlds his forces had devastated. Other council leaders faced various forms of community service, their punishments designed to help them understand the suffering they had caused. 5 years after the liberation, Ambassador Jin Hyok walked through the halls of the new Galactic Assembly building on Earth. The structure was designed to accommodate 47 different species as equals, with no elevated platforms or intimidating architecture that might favor one group over others. Inside the main assembly hall, representatives debated trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. The Zenori delegation was proposing an initiative to help newly contacted species avoid the mistakes that had led to the old tribute system. The Makari were sharing advanced agricultural techniques with worlds still recovering from ecological damage. "It is remarkable how different things are," said Shendal, who had accepted a position as chief cultural advisor to the new government. "For the first time in my very long life, I attend meetings where no one fears for their people's survival." Jin Hyok nodded as he watched the peaceful debate below. "My grandfather always said the hardest part would not be winning the war, but building the peace. We seem to be managing both." In the memorial garden outside the assembly building, stone monuments honored the billions who had died under the tribute system. Each monument carried the same inscription in every known language. "Never again will the strong enslave the weak. Never again will fear silence, justice. Never again will we allow tyranny to call itself peace." That afternoon, Jin Hyuk received a message from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Another new species had been detected on the edge of the galaxy. Their technology suggested they were just beginning to develop interstellar travel. The message sent to greet them was simple and clear. "You are invited to join a community of equals. There are no tribute demands, no forced service, no surrender of sovereignty. Your response to this invitation is entirely your choice. Welcome to the galaxy." As Jin Hyuk watched the message transmission begin its journey to the distant world, he reflected on how much had changed since his grandfather's generation had first encountered the Galactic Council. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear and exploitation. It was governed by cooperation and mutual respect. Humanity had given the galaxy a gift more valuable than any technology or resource. They had given it hope, and the promise that no species would ever again face the choice between slavery and extinction. The one-word reply that had shaken the council had become a galactic motto, carved in stone above the assembly entrance. No. It stood as a permanent reminder that sometimes the most powerful response to tyranny is the simple refusal to comply, backed by the strength and determination to make that refusal stick.